history to today, a situation where we have both stark humanitarian needs, and as Lauren has just mentioned, we have seen already destabilization and some unrest. So it's an important point. It's an important point locally, and it's an important point globally. We've already been talking today about a decrease in resources overall. I think it's important to note that this is a trend that we are seeing globally. Many of the partners who are here today are looking at shifts or decreases in both humanitarian and development assistance, and that is a trend that we have come together to talk about. How do we deal with that together? I think it does underline the need for thinking about new ways of doing business, and we've already heard a little bit about that today. Emphasizes, the basics, things like making sure that we coordinate in a way that we avoid duplication, but then also the more innovative. Are there new ways of thinking about financing? Are there new ways of partnering with the private sector? The Refugee Donor Group is ready to engage with all partners on how to find these kinds of solutions. And to the point of today, we've just heard from Stephen, the Sharika plan is a crucial part of this approach. The donor group has been supportive of the Sharika plan throughout its development. There are, of course, many stages in that development. I think now we are at the point where we're really looking at some of the legal and policy frameworks that are crucial enablers to implementation, thinking about how the government can unlock the administrative and policy challenges that are key to success for the Sharika plan over the long term. Again, the global picture of the funding changes only underscores the importance of finding a way to do this. And we're pleased to see how the plan has moved forward. As we think about the next steps, I think it's very important to think about how we are inclusive in the way that those final rollout procedures, implementing procedures, how those consultations are done, which is why I'm so happy to be here today in this forum. But think about all of the different parts and pieces, whether it's the donors themselves, the government, the ministry, or the counties, for example. And so with that in mind, I'd like to end with thinking about how we do these final consultations. I understand that there is an implementation plan that is in great, in an advanced stage of development. I think it's quite important that we discuss that, we have that open for consultations so that we can look for those areas of potential duplication that can be eliminated, those areas of opportunity, so that input can be made from all stakeholders, including the donor group. As I said before, the Refugee Donor Group is ready to engage on all of this in what we look at as a transformational part of moving forward in the situation we have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Mark. Another round of applause for him. Thank you very much. Waziri, allow me now to invite Ambassador Henrik Lenzer, who is Head of Cooperation from the Embassy of Denmark. Makofi kwake as he comes. Let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, Henrik, and karibu.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Good morning. Yeah, just to say, basically, I think actually I left Kenya only 3 years ago. I've been here for 4 years at that time, and I think coming back and seeing what has happened in this area and where we are now, I think tremendous progress actually has been made in the meantime. I don't remember this sort of coordination when I left, and so I think this is a huge progress. I think it's also from what we hear now. I think it's also the things we hear from WFP, I think it's sobering, and I think this is really also very necessary for us to come together. And I think the Shurika plan is the thing that we need to come together around. So from our side, I would just say that we stand fully behind the refugee donor group and the comments that have just been made by Mark. And I think it's so for us. I think I could say issues about where Denmark stands, but I think I will save that and just say that I think it's incredibly important that we do also on our side, that we are coming together and we are coordinating, making sure that we are not duplicating. There is really no room for duplication from where we are right now. So just to say that Denmark is an active member and co-chair of the Refugee Donor Group, and we will continue to support this progress of the Shurika plan. And I think I think this would be a good little motto for this meeting. Thank you for the Shurika plan. Thank you, Stephen, for that. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Another round of applause for Ambassador Henrik. Thank you very much, Henrik, for those kind words. Now we go now to the climax of this meeting. We want to invite our chief guest, and I want to, before you invite the chief guest, say that Cabinet Secretary, since we came to office, I think this is the first time we're having this kind of forum with the ambassadors. And I want to thank you very much for your commitment to matters refugees. We have seen you so much interested to take this conversation on refugees to the next level. So let's appreciate the Cabinet Secretary as he comes. Karibu sana. Welcome, Cabinet Secretary, and you'll help us now take the program forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you, PS. Thank you very much, Bwana PS. Your Excellency Mark Dillard, the Charge d'Affaires of Embassy of the United States of America, who is also the Chair, Refugee Donor Group, Excellencies, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, and members of the Refugee Donors Group, Dr. Stephen Jackson, the UN Resident Coordinator, UN agencies present. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning once again. I'm really truly honored to be here today at this meeting to discuss matters pertaining to refugees and asylum seekers in Kenya, including the funding situation and the Shirika plan, which everybody is thanking us for Shirika plan. I know what you are trying to do. I'd like to sincerely thank you for honoring our invitation. Over the 3 decades, as has been said by many of you, Kenya took a bold step of being the big brother or the big sister in the region to countries within the Great Lake region, East and Horn of Africa, facing conflict that led to massive forced displacement. Kenya took up this responsibility not only as an obligation to the UN 1951 Convention, but rather as a response to the call to. This has been a journey that has seen refugees live within our communities, access some government services of health, education, water, sanitation, and hygiene, among others, just like Kenyans, and to enjoy socioeconomic rights and privileges. The government of Kenya has progressively worked to address the needs of the refugees and to ensure there is an enabling environment for socioeconomic inclusion. Allow me to highlight some of the strides made, which include domestication of the 1951 UN Convention through the Refugee Act of 2021 and the Refugee General Regulations of last year. Adoption of the Kenya Comprehensive Refugee Response Framework, SHARE, in 2020. Gazettement of the Refugee Identification Document, legal notice number 148, used by refugees to access services in Kenya. Inclusion of refugees into the National Education Information System, otherwise known as NEMIS. rollout of the recognition of prior learning skills policy, allowing the accreditation of skills and education qualification refugees come with through assessment by Kenya National Quality Assurance Authority and given Kenyan certification. And that's a process that is ongoing. And I know part of it we are doing together with the World Bank based on my experience in the ministry that I served in before, that is in the Ministry of Youth and Sports. And of the refugees in the country, integrated development plans, the 2 counties of Turkana and Garissa and also Nairobi have included refugees in their CIDPs. Inclusion of refugees in the Kenyan healthcare system through the Social Health Insurance Fund, and the inclusion of refugees in the National Security, Social Security Fund under the program known as HABA. Access to KRA pins, among others, are very critical areas of progressive initiatives that Kenyan government has undertaken to help and make the life of refugees in Kenya better. Further, I'm happy to report that my ministry is in talks with the other government agencies and colleagues to ensure that the realization of full financial inclusion of refugees into the Kenya financial ecosystem, which is key if we are to achieve self-reliance. Just last week, I held a meeting with the stakeholders in this sector, and in line with this, the draft SIM card regulations recognize the refugee ID as a document to be used to access mobile money and will soon be submitted to Parliament for adoption. On access to banking, we are working with the relevant government agencies and to have the Know Your Customer requirements under the Anti-Money Laundering and Proceeds of Crimes Act amended to include refugee ID as a KYC document. This will enable refugees to operate bank accounts, a big step to the journey of integration. In order to enhance access to service offered by government, we plan to develop a government-owned refugee database that will be interoperable with other government systems. This will enable the government to have a real-time refugee data for planning as well as managing the security of the country. Excellencies, to build on the strides made and to fully implement the Global Impact on Refugees 2018, Kenya committed to coming up with a comprehensive strategies that will address existing challenges and look at development-oriented interventions that are suitable and promote refugee self-reliance and resilience. This initiative is the Shirika Plan that you have all applauded us for. Which also looks at the needs of host communities in the spirit of leaving no one behind to ensure that there are no disparities. Hence, the transition from camps to integrated settlement. The elevation of Dadaab and Kakuma Kaloboye into municipalities could be timelier, as this step will be crucial in the overall plan or plan rollout. Excellencies, Kenya started receiving refugees. When Kenya started receiving refugees, we thought it was a temporary situation. And the countries of origin will soon stabilize, allowing them to return. 35 years down, if you told a Kenyan 35 years ago that we would be moving to 800,000, now it could be even more. You never know by now with the situation in the region. No one would have really thought about that a few years ago. So 35 years later, we are faced with a protracted refugee situation, continuous conflict within the region, leading to continuous influxes and onward movements. The refugee population, on the other hand, keeps growing, with the numbers now standing, accounted numbers standing at 829,211 as at February this year. Increased numbers come with heightened needs, including security, food, shelter, education, healthcare, wash, livelihoods, just to mention a few. The increase in need should, however, not be a burden to Kenya alone, but a collective responsibility, including that of international community, which excellencies you represent. I'd like to appreciate the collaborative efforts we have made over the years as you have supported us in easing the burden of refugees. Your Excellencies, I note with great concern the state of delivery to refugees, which is majorly brought about by reduction in funding to organizations offering services to refugees. Last week, we witnessed protests in Kakuma brought about by reduction of food rations, which were at 65% in 2023, 45% in 2024, and I'm told, and you've heard from Lauren, it is now 40%, and I am informed that it may go to 20% beyond June this year. The status of access to services is indeed worrying, and if the funding situation is not addressed, we risk increased rates of insecurity, malnutrition, communicable diseases, increased maternal deaths, poor quality of education and healthcare, affecting mostly women and children. The government of Kenya has made a deliberate decision to integrate refugees socioeconomically through Shirika Plan. However, implementing this plan from the phase of transition and stabilization, where refugees need to be skilled and empowered, requires investment by all partners, including donors, international financial institutions, private sector organizations, among others. Your Excellencies, without funding commitments, the government will not only be unable to implement Shirika Plan, but also will not be able to continue hosting large numbers of refugees that we currently have. Allow me to emphasize the need for predictable and sustainable funding commitments. In 2023, the government of Kenya made pledges at the second Global Refugee Forum, but we have seen minimal pledges matching to date. We are therefore conscious not to find ourselves in a situation where, rather than addressing the challenges we have, we create competition between refugees and the host communities. The protest could be refugees today, but if we don't do something to make sure that it's a balanced relationship, it could also be the host community protesting against it. So the same problem will be shifted from one side to the other of the same camp. As we work on Shirika Plan, let us also come together to support those who want to return home through voluntary repatriation and increasing our settlement quotas and complementary pathways for third country solutions. As I conclude, I assure you, Excellencies, that the government is cognizant of the immense potential refugees come with, contribute to the growth of the local economies. I recall the objectives of the 2018 Global Compact on Refugees, and in particular the need to ease pressure on host countries and emphasize the sustainable solution to refugee solutions cannot be achieved without international cooperation. I call on all of you, including non-traditional donors, to support the government of Kenya by committing resources towards programs aimed to address the immediate and ongoing refugees and asylum seekers so that they can live in safety and dignity. The immediate programs and the ongoing ones. Finally, I thank you, Excellencies, from the embassies, World Bank, IFC, and JICA for the continued support to the government of Kenya in supporting refugee programs, and I assure you of my full support and that of the Ministry of Interior and National Administration in finding solutions and addressing the needs of refugees and host communities in Kenya. Before I actually sit, I really hope that we can have more or less, I hope, I don't know if it's closed door or open door, but if it's closed door, I'll even be happier, as long as the conversation is as candid as possible to assess the situation that we are in at the moment and ask ourselves what's the plan going forward. Is Shirika Plan the magic bullet? And the implementation of Shirika Plan. If Shirika Plan is to work, how do we ensure that the commitments of various actors are going to actually match the commitments of the government of Kenya, so that as we carry and shoulder the burden of introducing a very transformative plan You know the consequence of changing a plan drastically in any country. Some of the things we are faced as a country is because of the boldness of the president to put in place very transformative agendas at once. And you know what it has been for us because you live here. So if we had to shoulder Shirika plan, because that's one other transformative plan, there has to be a honesty, candid conversation and support from all actors, knowing that this is really, Kenya is already contributing by hosting these refugees and doing everything possible to ensure that they coexist together with the local community, and we need each other. We need each other. And thank you very much for wanted this roundtable to happen so that I start also on a high note, understanding exactly the refugee sector. And asanteni sana, and I look forward to a very constructive conversation. Asante sana.